Okay, folks, welcome to this afternoon's Wealth Creation Show. Today we've got on with us Perry McIntosh. Perry, how are you?
I'm great, Jim. For Monday, it's busy and it's good, and productive team already this morning, which is fab.
Absolutely. Good afternoon to our people on TikTok and also on Instagram as well. I'm streaming on 3 different cameras here at the same time. I feel like one of these people in the press, but they've got all the microphones at them.
Gentlemen at the back.
But it's necessary because you can't stream from this software and doing that. So good afternoon to everybody from TikTok and Instagram and also Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn as well as YouTube. So we are multiple streaming across all those channels, across our office channels as well. So I think it's around about 16 different channels we're live streaming to right now at this moment. So this is about how to retire early. This is a common subject where everybody talks about. I mean, if I was to ask you what age the retirement is age in the UK, what would you say? What would you actually say genuinely?
Genuinely, I mean, for women, it's 67, isn't it?
Yeah.
65, 67 is where I would be.
Okay. And normally, everybody out there, if you're there, what is the retirement age in the UK? Tell me. Say in the comments, feel free to do that. And my natural response to this was, well, the retirement age is 65 years old when I was asked that. And my friend said, no, it's not. I went, of course it is. It's 65 year old. Why is it no? That's what the government says. He went, it's not. And I went, right, okay, you're going to tell me something that I probably didn't know. And effectively he says, well, your retirement age is any time you want. What is the one thing that stops you from retiring? It's money.
Lack of.
If you had all the money in the world, you'd be able to retire any time you want, wouldn't it? So and that then the penny dropped for me at that time, and it was like, wow, I never actually realised that, and how I was following a 40-year plan, or what's effectively a 50-year plan now, because more and more people the retirement age is getting pushed out by the state, so everybody's relying on this, dare I say, outdated system. It's in place in order to sustain an economy. But if you're buying into that, you're going to follow a 40 to 50-year plan in terms of what you're doing. And it's like, I didn't really want to follow that 40-year, 50-year plan, especially if there was an alternative way to do this. Now, retirement has nothing to do with age, as I said. It's got everything to do with money. If you have the money, you can retire anytime you want. But the type of retirement I'm not, because other people have actually said to me in the past, it's like, oh, I wouldn't like to retire early. What, you tried it lately? Because I tell you what, it's pretty good. I wouldn't like to retire early. I wouldn't like all that money.
I don't think it's just about that as well, though. I think we're programmed, Jim, aren't we, it's the 65 rule, and then when you're retired, you sit with your feet up and you don't do anything. I think it's different now, isn't it? And people can do a variety of things if they retire early. So say you retired at 50, 55, 38, as it was in your instance. There's other things you can do, but what it's allowing you, I guess, to do is live a life that you can choose rather than a life that you must do because you need that income.
Retirement isn't, and this is what my friend said to me at the time. This was 35 years ago. This is Bernard D'Souza. Bernard D'Souza was extremely wealthy. He retired at 25 years old, never to work another day in his life if he didn't want to. All his income was basically passive, and I really mean passive. It was coming in whether he worked or not. And he told me, retirement isn't about sitting on the porch watching your dog die, or watching life go by and pass by you. Retirement is about doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, at any time you want to do it, and have the money to do it as well. That's what he said to me retirement was all about. And for me, that resonated all through my life, and it still resonates with me today. Retirement has got nothing to do with anything, with age at all. It's everything to do with money. So if you've got all the money in the world you want, or what you need to do what you want to do, then effectively you're retired. I mean, people say to me, it's like, well, you're not retired, you're doing this. But I choose to do this. I love doing this every single time. I love doing this day in, day out. I get up to do this. To do something is to actually give you purpose and add value to what you do, and to align with your beliefs and your patterns and what you actually think, and do the things you really want to do is complete happiness for the rest of your life. or dare I say contentness. The pursuit of retirement is not to be happy, it's to be content.
I think it's about contentment, Jim, but I think it's also about, it's then a choice of your choosing rather than it's enforced on you because you have to work till 65, say.
Yeah.
So it's about your choosing.
What I mean by contentness, it's contentness for retirement is doing what you want to do when you want to do it. But being content is an acceptable standard or acceptable level every single day to achieve. Even when you're not really great, you'll still be content within yourself. But if your pursuit is happiness every single time, there'll be days that you'll never achieve that. And you will, as a result, then you won't be very happy inside. So the pursuit of contentness is probably the main objective. And the happiness is a bonus over and above that, which comes as a result of that.
So how do people do that then, Jim? How do they retire early?
Ooh, that's the golden question. Well, how do you retire early? I'm going to talk about a step-by-step process here. And really, they are the bare basic bones of what I've done myself. If it's the goal that appeals to you, it's worth taking a closer look at what it means in practice. This step-by-step process about what we're talking about, retiring early, sets out the main things you'll need to think about and some of the recommendation and the ways that you're going to address them. Now, I'm going to flag up pitfalls to avoid opportunities to watch for, and also that you can estimate things like your final private pension income, no matter what age you are right now. And yes, I'm going to talk about pensions, but yes, I'm going to talk about property investment, and I'm also going to talk about the journey I've actually taken and probably put bits into that as well. And Perry, you're probably going to ask questions about this because most of this stuff comes off the top of my head out of sound bites I remember from the past. And it's amazing when it comes back to me, some of the things I actually remember that I had to do to achieve where I've got so far. Where most people, just for anybody else watching out there in the beginning, this isn't me blowing my own trumpet. This is me just basically educating people about, you can do the same as well. I am not selling you anything. I am not here to sell you anything at all. I'm here just to tell you what I did to achieve what I wanted to achieve and what the freedom it's given me. Now, for the last 17 years, I'm 55 now, going to 56, so it'll be 18 years. I've been happily retired, and this is the retirement I talked about there now. 38 years old was when I was lucky enough to do that, or fortunate enough to do that. I always call luck, to be honest, is labour under correct knowledge. That's what luck is. Nobody, if you say to anybody they're lucky, more than likely it's the labour under correct knowledge. In other words, they've worked out the formula they need to do to get where they're going, and that's why they're lucky. It's, I think it was Gary Player it once said, the more I practice, the luckier I get, and the luckier I get, the more I achieve in competition. And effectively, that's what it is. It's doing the things that you need to do in order to get that. This is a combination of everything. This is things like delayed gratification. It's like also delayed gratification. It's actually being consistent in doing what you're meant to be doing. It's actually sticking to the plan, sticking to the formula, seeing that long-term vision as well. So all comes in overall in that overall picture. So it's not something that happens just overnight, like anybody tries to portray. There's a lot of I call them furus, fake gurus. A lot of furus out there purport to say anybody can do this and look at this person. But this person they're going to show you is probably one person out of the 6 billion people on the planet who actually achieved what they are actually teaching. So what's the likelihood of you actually achieving it? And I was always told, well, we're only here to talk about you. And if you're going to say you're not going to achieve it, guess what? You're not going to achieve it.
That's it. It's all about mindset, isn't it?
It is. You can listen. I'll go back to the George McFly and Back to the Future, and he says, if you don't think you can achieve it, you'll never achieve it. If you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything you want. That's the phrase, and that sort of sticks with me as a soundbite. If you put your mind to it and discipline yourself, you can achieve anything you want. So, what do we mean by retiring early? Well, first question is twofold. It's the retiring and it's early. So it's all about finishing work. Well, do you really need to finish work? It probably just gives you the opportunity to actually move on to what you really want to do, the things that you really want to do. 91% of the people in this world are actually in jobs that they don't like, that they actually hate, they don't like going to work. 9% of people actually are in the jobs that they love. I'm quite fortunate.
How do you get to that stage though then, Jim? Because obviously what you did previously was nothing like what you do now. So how did you get to the point where, okay, you decided that you were in a position where you could retire, but then going from accountant to in a production manufacturing environment into property,
Yeah.
etc. Did that come just from your own private investment in property that drew you to, what actually drew you to that whole reflect, change, go forward?
Okay, well, that's a good question. I've been for a number of things. So I'll tell you where I first started off. I started off as a window cleaner with my father. Then I was homeless, unemployed. I know this is another story, by the way. Homeless, unemployed. Wait a minute, you work with your dad, and then you're homeless, unemployed. Well, a falling out, not with my father, but with my brother. That's a long story. That's another story. That's for the book.
That's another show.
That's chapter 1 of chapter 2 in the book. Actually, I'm up to about chapter 4. Anyway, that's another story. And then from there, it was like going back to college and then studying and then becoming an accountant in industry. In manufacturing, starting off at the beginning, and then accelerating my career. As a result of the system I plugged myself into, I was actually working at the time with Bernard D'Souza and Jerry Scriven and Pat and Greta Gregory. They had a system which actually was books, tapes, functions, and mentors. So in other words, that's what everybody does today: podcasts, books, functions. They go to training, and then they have mentors to keep them on track. So I did this all 35 years ago. And I've had all these people throughout all my life at various different sources and actually keeping track of me what I'm doing right now. I mean, you've got Mark Wilkinson just now. And,
Absolutely.
you know, Mark's an absolutely fantastic mentor.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a good mentor for you. And for me as well, I have different mentors that keep me on track as well. So that's how I first started out. But then to go through all that process and then obviously end up, wait a minute, but I'm an accountant, and it's like an accountant with numbers, but you don't need to be an accountant to do what I did. It was only the fact of my basic understanding the numbers and getting the right training from the right people that I began to realize this. And I got a bigger picture. I mean, even this morning, I found out that apparently once you die, you have no capital gains anymore. So you can make huge gains on your assets. And effectively, when you die, that capital gains tax actually dies with you. Your assets are no taxed on capital gains anymore. They're inheritance tax. Now, if you've got your money or your assets in a different sphere, you potentially could mitigate that inheritance tax. So you pay no capital gains or tax at all. Because if you've got a lending on top of that, therefore the lending outweighs the value of the property. Therefore, you have no inheritance tax liability. So when you die, you have no capital gains or inheritance tax liability. Is that possible to do that? Absolutely. And it's like, I just found that out this morning. So I'm always learning about what to do and how to do it. And discretionary trusts and limited liability partnerships and how all these work. But it's a constant process of never-ending improvement. And making sure you understand it and discipline yourself for that route through all that process. So it's not about money. So here's some of the things that you need to do. What do I need to do to retire early? Well, dare I say that effort multiplied by return equals your financial freedom. It's the effort you put in multiplied by return will lead to your financial freedom. And your financial independence. Now, for some people out there, financial independence could be maybe £500 a month. It could be £1,000 a month. It could be £2,000 a month. It could be £3,000 a month. So people can run about there and go, I'm financially free. And it's like, okay, so you're financially free. But other people interpret that as, oh, you've got £5,000 a month or £10,000 a month. But they don't actually tell you how they're financially free. That's why I talk about the Furus, about how they put these people forward. They're financially free. Well, how are they financially free? Because your financial freedom to my definition of financial freedom is completely different. My definition of financial freedom is you can support yourself for the next 2 years without any input from anything else. You can still sustain the same income as you've got right now without doing anything. That's financial independence for 2 years, 24 months. So if you're on a salary of 100,000 and you're taking home 70,000 because you're taxed on that, then you've got 70,000 every single year for the next 2 years that you can live on. That's financial independence. Wealthy is 1% of the population. That's people that never need to work ever again. They could rely, they don't need any income. They've got all the income they've got, and they can live on that for the rest of their life and pass it on to the next generations. That's wealthy. That's 1% of our population of that. That's what financial independence to me is, financial freedom.
To be financially independent, though, what if you talk about something? You gave that example there of 100,000 earnings. You got 70,000. You need 140. But it can't just be about your earnings. What's the other things that you need to do to achieve that financial independence?
Well, financial independence. It's not having to rely on someone else to produce that income. It's not. It's actually not being. So another one is if you could say one of the biggest goals for me was I was able to say anything I want, anytime I want, and it had no implications of my income. It had no effect on my income at all because no one could influence me. And what I mean is in a political field. So the reason I said that is because I'm very heavily involved in housing politics. It's like I'll say what I mean really, because I'll call the government out for the lack of being able to do something. And in order for me to be able to do that, I never wanted to be on their gravy train. In other words, I never wanted to be a politician because I would then have to cow down or I would have to bow down to what they wanted me to say. So I never ever wanted to be like that. I wanted to be independent of that. So that's why I created an income outside of what I did in order for me to be able to say anything political. And they would have they couldn't affect that at all. They couldn't have any implications on me, any effect on me at all in terms of my income. So that was probably one of the other things for me. But to achieve financial independence, things like yes, you can pay off your debts. You can pay off your mortgage. Enough income for your daily needs, additional funds so you can enjoy life, sufficient savings for emergencies. That's another one for your financial independence that you'd want to achieve. But here's the first thing about paying off debts. Prioritize paying off your debts above building up savings. Now, what I mean by debts, as in we're talking about credit card debts. We're not talking about. I talk about debt as in there's. To me, I have what's called classed as good debt. I mean, good debt's money you can make on the money. So in other words, I can borrow from the bank at 5% and I can make 15% return on it. So I'm always making a 10% differential on that debt. The last thing I'd want to do is pay down debt at that rate, because I can still take the money I could have paid down that debt at and actually earn 15% on that money. So why would I want to pay off 5%? If I could make 15% on that same money. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense, because you're getting a better return than you'll get anywhere else by doing that, because property, and that's why you talk about property investment, isn't it? Because that's where you're getting a higher return as if it was just sitting in an account. So it's about having the ability to do that.
It could be shares, it could be your pension. Think about this, right? If you're coming up for retirement and you're going to get an instant boost of the lower rate threshold or the higher rate threshold as well on your pension, and you're coming up for retirement and you're only getting 1% in the bank if you've got a lump sum of cash, where do you think that should go? You should chuck it into your pension straight away, because that'll instantly add the higher rate tax on it if you're a higher rate payer, but it'll also instantly add the lower rate on it as well. You're instantly getting a 25% return just by putting it into your pension. Admittedly, when you take it out, you'll get taxed on the income. But if you take it out, if you plan it enough and you take it out as in the lower rate allowance, then you're getting out tax free. So you're actually getting that boost on your savings straight away by putting it into a pension just before you're about to retire. You're even getting a 25% lump sum of that out tax free in your pension as well. So it's actually good for people when they're coming up to retirement to think about actually putting their money and just sticking it into their pension to get that instant boost on it.
So what do you do if you're someone who's, I mean, we've already said at the start here that you're kind of 55 coming into 56 now. I'm in the same age bracket as yourself. But what would you be saying to anybody out there who's listening or watching just now that's maybe in their early 30s, say, and they're thinking, well, I quite like the sound of that. How do they even begin? Do you know what I mean? If they've got no real cash flow at the moment, where does it come from and how do you start? How minimal can it be or how large does it need to be?
Well, if you've got an income coming in, for example. So if you've got an income coming in, the first thing, the first mindset I had in the very beginning when I had an income coming in was how much do I have to invest for my future, and then how much have I got left to spend. Most people have the mentality of how much do I need to cover my bills, and then what have I got left to invest.
Yeah,
that's how they think. Whereas I'm the other way around. I actually think, how much have I got to invest for my future, and then what have I got left to spend.
so
and then I cut my cloth to suit my purpose. That was it, really.
It's really about your intended lifestyle then, isn't it? Your intended lifestyle versus what you really will increase what you have, or what you necessarily would need in assets, wouldn't it?
You have to have full belief in yourself, Perry. If you genuinely believe that you're going to achieve what you're going to achieve in the next 10 to 15 years, and for most people, the first thing that goes in their head is, I want to be a millionaire. If you really believe you are actually going to be a millionaire, you will work towards that. And everything that you do, you invest in right now, will lead you towards that, because you've got every belief to do it. And I'll guarantee you'll actually achieve it because you've got the belief to do it. It's people that actually don't, they like the idea that they'll maybe be a millionaire in the next 10 to 15 years. But here's the big but. They don't actually really believe in their heart of hearts that it could happen to them. And that's the people that actually don't achieve it. And yet the people go on to achieve it are actually the people that do exactly the same thing as they're doing, but they discipline themselves to do it. And they know that's what they need to do. So it was things like, for example, if I got a salary increase, the first thing I would do is actually not spend that salary increase. I don't run out and think I could get a better car on hire purchase because I'm getting another £100, £200 a month. I think I could put another £200 into my property investment vehicle, into my retirement plan, into what I want to do later on, into what I want to do in my short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. These are good things to actually plan out in that process. If you get a windfall from someone, a family member, unfortunately, maybe they pass away and they say, look, I'm leaving you £20,000 in my will. It's like, your beauty. The first thing you should be thinking in your head is not what I can spend on, is what I can invest in. Because that investment's going to set you free later on. But again, I come back to say, you have to believe that's going to happen. If you have no belief in yourself that that's going to happen, and you just think that's a pie in the sky idea, you will spend that £20,000 at the first opportunity. When something comes up about this dream car that you've always wanted, you will spend it on it. The one lesson I learned from my father, which was one of the lessons I learned from my rich dad, and he was a rich dad, a window cleaner, a rich dad. He was wealthier than most of the people in the golf club, and he was the window cleaner. But the one thing I learned from my rich dad was, the last thing he should have said he said, the thing, my biggest regret, he says, I spent so much money on cars, and it was cars I never needed. I just loved cars and I liked cars. He says, but I really regret the fact that I spent so much money on cars. He said, if I'd saved that money and put it aside, I could have had a lot better now, after waiting, delayed gratification, see how that comes in, than actually buying cars right now. Because he just used to say, I've got cash to buy a car. I'll buy a car this year. And then 2 years later, he'd buy a new car and trade that one in. He'd lose a huge amount of money on it every single time. And that was one of his biggest regrets. My dad still taught me a lot of lessons, but that was one of the key lessons that I actually learned out of what he said.
It's a massive mindset change, though. I mean, we've referenced this in previous shows, but we kind of do live in a microwave society as well, though, don't we? Where it's ping and I want it today, and ping, I want it today. So say you're living in that society, in that mindset, and perhaps listening to this, you think, actually, do you know what? This is all making sense for me. What do they then need to do, Jim, to move that forward, to then change that mindset and then start putting the building blocks in place? How would you recommend someone starts the journey?
I think personally, it's all about getting educated first. And there's a lot of free advice out there, free information out there. And sometimes, free means it's not really worth the paper it's written on. However, on some occasions, if you get the right people, you can get the right information out of people. It is worth investing a wee bit of money in yourself, paying for the right courses, but you've got to make sure you find the right people to do that. And they are few and far between, but I have done over the years. But the staples are, for me, are like people like Tony Robbins. I mean, people talk about Tony Robbins as like, oh, he's a rah-rah person. But Tony Robbins fundamentally understands the whole psyche of human behavior and understands and teaches you to understand, to manage you and understand where your triggers are and how you can motivate yourself internally. It's about getting internal motivation. So it's about making sure you've got internal motivation. That comes down to reading books, listening to podcasts, having mentors, and actually attending functions. And it could be online stuff. It could be, I'm watching Diary of a CEO, and it's some of the most successful people in their fields on Diary of a CEO. That is free information. Admittedly, you're watching the adverts, and that's where he makes his money, and that's how he monetizes it. But this is a guy, Steve Bartlett, is going around some of the most successful people in the world and asking them in their particular fields exactly what it is that does it for them and how they're so successful, but also what is it in their field that can help the person viewing and watching at that time. So there's loads and loads of subjects that actually anybody can actually engage with in order to understand them. It's once you understand you and how you tick, you can do anything you want in this world. Nothing is beyond you. And I really mean nothing is beyond you. You really want to do it. But you have to understand you and understand how you tick and understand how to get the best out of you. And it's all coming back to making sure you educate yourself, making sure you understand and you learn about you. But it is the books, the tapes. It is Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. It is Dr. Susan Jeffers, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It is Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. It is all these different people. I tell you what, Think and Grow Rich is Napoleon Hill interviewed 25 of the most wealthiest people in the world at that time. Andrew Carnegie was one of them. Henry Ford was another. And that's exactly what Steve Bartlett's doing right now in different fields. He's actually reinventing that. So that's what Diary of a CEO is all about in today's field. But Think and Grow Rich is a timeless classic which does not go out of date. It is all about compounding wealth, compounding education, compounding anything in your life and how to do that and how it measures that. I've read that book almost 50 times. And every single time I learned something new about myself and also learning something new about what I can do to put myself on that track and get even a bigger picture of where I am right now. Also having mentors, there's no surprise. The Sunday slot was all about, interviewing people for me that I was intrigued about their journey and what made them successful and what they were doing. So that's why I did the Sunday slot. It wasn't about doing anything else other than learning from other people. And I thought, well, I may as well do it at the same time and get people on the show and talk to them about how they achieve things, what they are and where they are in their journey and how they've done it. So it's about learning from people far more successful than you in the field that you maybe want to be, or the field that you maybe feel that you're maybe lacking in. You could actually strengthen that overall competence in. So
it's like you say,
a big thing. Understanding your failures and admitting to yourself where you actually fail is a big thing. Hey, it's a confidence knocker, but it's also a confidence booster to be able to understand you and understand how you think and understand how you can motivate you and understand where you need to build on in terms of your skills and actually get out your comfort zone. If you are completely comfortable right now doing what you're doing, that's a frightening prospect, because you should feel just a wee bit uncomfortable every single time. And uncomfortableness is a great feeling because it means you're actually growing in whatever you're doing. You need to be uncomfortable to grow.
Yeah, it's like Mark Wilkinson says to me, get comfortable feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's true.
The best thing ever. If you're uncomfortable with anything, if your boss asks you to do something, you thought, oh God, I'm scared of doing that. Guess what? You're uncomfortable. Fantastic. Embrace that because you're actually growing. It's something you're going to be learning for the first time. So you want to be quietly uncomfortable every single time. And it is what Mark says about being uncomfortable. Get used to being uncomfortable. Paying off your debts is one of the ones I did talk about what I did. So what I did as well in the early days, I looked at my consolidation of my debts. Things like car payments, mortgage payments, maybe a furniture that we'd actually bought it we were paying up as well. And I actually looked at them overall and looked at my overall budget. So I looked at what I had going out, I looked at what had coming in, and I thought, where can I mitigate my cash flow So in order to bring my cash flow up, so I had more money to reinvest in my business, in my system that I was actually doing. Remember, this is all about feeding the baby. Your business or whatever you're doing right now, in your property investment, on your shares investment, in your currency trading, whatever you're doing right now is your baby. If you're not feeding the baby is dying. And you must invest to feed the baby every single time. And we all talk about it. Everybody successful talks about feeding the baby. And the baby is whatever it is to you. But if you starve the baby will never feed you later on and grow up and actually reap you the rewards you actually want. So it's all about reinvesting in the baby. And the baby is the vehicle you're going to use to retire. So everything that came in, I looked at how much cash flow can I generate every single month over and above what I actually need to survive on. There's a difference between living and surviving. Survive on in order to invest that, so I can actually have a quicker and more prosperous future. Get there quicker than everyone else. The goal is, you know where you're going, right? When you know where you're going and you understand where you're going, your objective here is to actually get there as quick as possible. And you'll do anything within your power if you understand and truly believe that you're going to get there quick enough. And if it means you need to reinvest more money earlier and at a higher level in order to get there quicker, I'm up for that straight away. And that's what I did. So I took all my debts and consolidated. So I maybe had a £250 car payment. I maybe had a £250 there. But then I went, okay, how can I bring these two, the £500 in cash every month I'm outlaying? How can I bring these two and consolidate and get another loan to pay that off, but push that loan out further? And it meant a way that I paid a wee bit more interest. But I knew that investment, not spending, that investment would reap more rewards so I could pay that loan off quicker later on. So in actual fact, the amount of loan I was pushing out overall, if I paid it off to the end, was actually more interest on it. But if I paid it off earlier, I would have been just as where I am before, but I would have actually reinvested in more and I would have been there quicker. So I was working it out in the numbers game in order to get there quicker for the debts. So you definitely go for the high interest stuff. You definitely go for the high interest. And talk about credit cards, you go for them straight away. And if somebody's going to pay you a return of, somebody actually talked about this the other day, and they were saying, it's like, so what's your credit card? Well, it's 18%. So my daughter's looking for a 10% return on her investment. And the boy said, well, why do you not just get your daughter to pay off your credit card at 18% and you give her a 10% return on her money? So your credit card debt's now gone down to 10% every month instead of 18. Good idea.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's. Do you feel it's a kind of long-term gain as well, Jim? I mean,
if you understand where you're going, it is a long-term gain. But when I thought about where I started and how quick I got there, it was almost between 8 and 10 years. So to me, it felt like a long journey, but 8 to 10 years is nothing. I mean, could you imagine if you're 20-year-old right now and you started your journey and you were retired by 30? Yeah. For a lot of people, well, it took me 3 years from knowing I could retire from industry as an accountant and actually earn more money in 1.5 days than I did in a full-time job. It took me 3 years to get over that mental hurdle to actually say I could actually just retire. I could leave. I went through torment for 3 years in my job. Actually, thinking, why am I here? Why am I here? I used to look out the window and go, why am I here? I could be on a beach. I could be on a golf course. I could be doing something I really want to do. But I had no one to be able to set a template or an example of who had done that before, who'd actually just gone out, because it was never in my psyche. I'd known anybody. I knew the guys that I worked with, but they were no longer there after I had started my journey, and I had other different mentors at that point. But I knew no one that had actually been able to walk away from their job and actually earn more in their part-time income than they did in their job. I didn't know anybody like that at all. So it just, and everybody around about me worked full time. So I just thought, how's that possible for me to do that? But I can do it on paper. But how is it possible for me to do that? So just that fear. The fear held me back from actually taking that step.
I think when you then take the step, though, it's about understanding the timeline of that journey. You talked about early on, Jim, about goals, etc. And Kat makes a really good comment here. If you look at what Kat's saying here, So delayed gratification is so important in all aspects of achieving your goals. The problem is no one has any patience anymore and they want everything now.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that?
I can't disagree with it. It is delayed gratification is one of the keys to everything, and a lot of people just don't want to pay that. And I talk about pay a price. I tell you what, you'll either pay the price now or wait till you get the bill from regret. Because you're only going round once, and you've got this one opportunity. You'll have several opportunities, by the way, because there's a stream of successive failures in my past that it didn't work for me. I tried and I did other things as well, and I was and effectively I failed at it. But the great thing is I never failed at it because I learnt from it, and it actually got me to where I am right now. And if I hadn't gone through that failure, I would never be where I am right now. So I needed that to happen in order for this to happen right now. Yeah. If that didn't happen, God forbid, I would still be working with Standard Life.
Mark Wilkinson refers to that a lot, and he does like a kind of motivational Monday thing. And one of the things he put up this morning was a graph, and it was exactly that. It was like try, fail, grow, try, fail, grow, try, fail, grow, try, Absolutely. Fail, grow, succeed. And it was a long journey of failures to grow to then be successful.
Pushed myself out of the comfort zone, phoning people up, cold calling them. That's the type of things I was doing, pushing myself out of the comfort zone. I was literally demented with that process. And it really drove me to almost destruction, having to cold call people and phone people up. I've got an opportunity for you. You want to get involved? You want it? What's it all about? It's like, I'll come round to your house and tell you about it. These are things that I did in the past, network marketing, which actually laid the path and blazed the trail for me to do what I'm doing now. Other things as well. I used, Fife Employment Gazette. I never thought big enough. Before Employment Gazette came out, where I had all the adverts with jobs and everything like that, I took it around all the employers in Fife and they went, that's a great idea. Fife Council was like, if you can reach a market, which is a demographic we don't reach with now, they're advertising, we'll advertise in your magazine. I even had other people though saying, that'll never work, pal. You've got no chance. And this was people that I thought were my peers. And it's hard to take that knock. And it's like, what do? Do you just lie down? Do you? Hell, you get up, you dust yourself off, and you keep going on. It's like, what do these people know? Take a good look at somebody that tells you it's not going to work, and look at them and think to yourself, do you want what they want? Do you want what they have? Take a look at them when they tell you that'll no work. Do you want what they've got? Their lifestyle, their car, their debt, their job, their stress, their lack of money at the end of every month, because they're broke at a different level, by the way. And if the answer to that is no, for God's sake, why should you listen to them then? I had it the other day. One of my cousins said, pulled him aside and said, you didn't want to embarrass yourself at the London Marathon if you don't make the right time. And I'm like, really? It's like, what do you mean embarrass yourself at the London Marathon? Almost like telling him he shouldn't go in for it if he's not hitting a certain time. And it's like, just the very fact that you get round the London Marathon's an achievement in itself, whether you're walking or no. It's like, and the money he could raise for charity. But his friend thought he would take him aside and say, you don't want to embarrass yourself. I would tell your friend to do one. Go forth and multiply is the expression, pal. It's like, honestly, that's the type of people you don't need around yourself. Get rid of these people straight away. They could be your friends, yes, but for God's sake, don't take their advice, because they know nothing about being successful if they don't have the lifestyle you want. That's the key here.
It's
things like paying off your mortgage. We talk about paying off your mortgage. Okay, here's a classic example. I have still not paid off my mortgage. Now, why have I not paid off my mortgage? Because I get £130,000 of lending and I get it at 3.5%. Interest only on my house. I've still got an interest-only mortgage that they can't take away from me for the next 15 years. If I can make if I pay 3.5% on an interest-only mortgage and I can make 15% with that money, why would I pay it off? And this is what people talk about remortgage. My wife even says that to me. Elaine says, maybe we should take money out of our property, to reinvest in everything. And Elaine goes, but we might lose it. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you might lose it? It's like we're putting it in property. It's going to earn money. At this point in time, we've got it in property right now that's not earning us any money at all. So why would I not just go and invest it in property that is actually earning us money and actually going up at the same rate? Because if this property goes down that we're in right now, so will the one that we're investing in. But the one we're investing in will actually earn money in, and this one will no. It's costing us money. A lot of people don't understand that. It's fear that drives us for that purpose. Hey, listen, you can pay off your mortgage if you want. If that's what you want to do, fair enough, more power to you. A lot of people just want to pay off their mortgage. That's what they're taught. The 40 to 50-year plan is pay off your mortgage, pay off your debts, retire on 2/3 of what you couldn't afford to live on in the first place, and that's you out to pasture.
Doesn't sound very appetizing.
Exactly. But that is the dream that we are sold. That is the dream we're sold every single time, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Work out your basic income needs is another one in retirement. For retirement, what do you need? What do you need right now? I mean, we were down to the state that Elaine and I was both working at the time, and I worked out where we got our monthly spend down to £1,000 a month, and that's all we needed to survive on. So we literally needed £12,000 in cash to survive on every single year. And for me, I thought that's a good price to pay. And I'm happy to do that if in 10 to 20 years' time, I will retire financially free for the rest of my life and never need to worry about money ever again. And do what I want to do whenever I want to do it. It's a price I'm happy to pay. And that was the price I was happy to pay. But for other people, they might want an in-between. They might consider. But if we have two incomes coming in, the great thing was Elaine also had redundancy. So Elaine had an opportunity of redundancy from Diageo because she worked at Diageo, and it was 3 times her salary. I couldn't have turned that down. And I just looked at that and thought to myself, 3 times her salary, that would be deposits for about 6 houses at that time. And I thought 6 houses would generate me 250 quid a month after the mortgage is paid on 6 houses. Each house, 250 quid. That is more than my income I'm earning right now in my job. And then I thought to myself, I could retire. And I thought, no, I can't, because I would be living on that income and I want to reinvest that income. So that's why I did that. So Elaine was, Elaine gave up her work. We had a family, at that time. So we had a family. Elaine gave up her work. We took redundancy. I reinvested that money and then made even more money on that money. So that was another opportunity I looked. So every windfall we were looking at, when I had shares in BT and stuff like that, I was right into the Woolwich and the sell-offs and everything like that. And I was in there straight away. I was pulling the money back out and I was reinvesting it in property. So I was making the quick gain and then I was reinvesting it back in property. When all the building size demutualized, I was making the quick gain by putting the maximum amount of money in my accounts to get the maximum share distribution out of it. And then I was taking that money, I was then putting it back into property. When I was has endowments with Standard Life, I was phoning up Standard Life and going, how much could you make on my endowment every single year? Well, probably about 8%. Can you make 25% a year? We'll never make that. I says, right, cash my policy in now. I'm investing in property. That's how convinced I was in the vehicle that I had. And it's still like that today, to be honest. If you get it right and get the numbers right, it's still like that today. It will work like that today. Hence the reason why I'm buying my next property on Friday. And then I've possibly got another one in line as well, which I've got to speak to my sourcer about in the next couple of days. But he's got another one lined up for me. If the numbers work, it makes absolute sense every single time. You can't really go wrong. It's almost like a surefire bet. I don't see it's like it's safe as houses. It's literally, it's like, how could you go wrong investing in a house? If you've got it insured as well, then sure, it's underwritten. So if anything happens to the house, then it's insured and it's fixed as a result. That's why you insure houses, to de-risk the situation. So it's working out your basic income needs for retirement. And that's what I did. Again, I went through that spreadsheet and I looked where I could shave off amounts of where I got, where I could refinance stuff, where I could get a lower amount of cash. We talk about this in refinancing for people. Their mortgages are currently going up if they're on a variable rate mortgage. If you can't get a fixed rate mortgage, then look at refinancing on a better deal or elongate your mortgage period. So therefore, your cash every month going out actually comes down in your payments because you're making it a longer period of the term of the mortgage. That was another thing I did. I got a longer term mortgage. Therefore, instead of having a mortgage of £350 a month, it ended up being £180 a month. So then I was able to take that £100 or £150 and compound that over the year, which equated to around about £1,500, which actually went to put a partial deposit for another house. That's the sort of things you've got to think about.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's having a structure, it's having a goal, and it's having a plan, and that can be short, medium, and long term, isn't it? And having faith in that.
It's having faith is the most important thing for you. So working at basic income needs and what you'll also need, not basic income for retirement, because you really want to make as much money as possible and have the choices to do what you want to do when you actually retire. Then you can actually give it to people who actually really need it. You know, hey, just go for making as much money as you can, right? And then if you don't need that much, then start giving it to people that need it. That's the opportunity there. Don't just go for, aim for the stars and catch the moon on the way down if that's the case. You know, you might just hit the stars. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another one I think you've got to do is work out your discretionary spending that you'd want to be doing. So what's the hardest figure to estimate? You'll need to think about in detail the plans. If you're going to be retiring, and it doesn't matter when you're going to be retiring, you could be, again, it's not down to age. Then how many holidays are you going to want to have? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Are you going to buy, you know, your favorite car? Are you going to buy your dream house? I mean, at one point, I was actually going to buy a castle. I was actually working out if I could buy Kelly Castle because it was on the market at 600,000. That's what I was thinking about. It's like, I'll buy a castle. Superb. I always wanted to live in a castle. But then, you know, but these were big, lofty goals for me. And it's like, I got to the point where it was like, Kelly Castle went on the market and it was at 600,000. I thought, oh, I could buy Kelly Castle. But then I thought, nah, I'm going to have to sink everything into Kelly Castle and it'll be a money pit. And I'll be there for the rest of my life. And what will happen is, here's how I look at it. The big, massive house you've just bought ends up becoming your coffin.
Yeah.
Because you're stuck in it for the rest of your life. You're stuck on the hamster wheel because you're paying for that huge mortgage. You're paying for all these outgoings and all these running costs that you're needing to do. So that ends up being the thing that will take you down. Yeah. That's how I began to sort of see things like that. Castles and cars and Lamborghinis, and it's like these are all the things that will just take you down completely and not allow you to make the choices you really want to make and what you align with best and to help out your children. I mean, I've had a great time driving my Lamborghini. Dad, I'm needing to go to university. I'm going to have to take out a loan. It's like, okay then, you'll have to, because I can't afford to put you in university now because I've spent it on a flash car. It's like that's for me. That wasn't even a thought. I thought I've got an obligation. I stood with my daughter in my hands. I'm maybe going to talk about that story because I'm going to start grieving because it's coming out as welling up already. I'm about to tell that story. And it's like, oh my God, here we go. It's like, you know, I promised my daughter I would do, and my kids and everything when they were first born. Certain things I promised them. At the very, very beginning, obviously they don't remember it because they were like 6 minutes old. But it was for me. It was everything, and this was one of my things true to myself within myself that I was never ever going to let my kids not want for anything, but be denied access because of money. That was one thing I could never do. That I never ever want to be that person. You know, Dad, I need. I want to do this and I want to do that. It's like, well, I'm sorry, but I tell you what, come and have a look at my darts trophies that I won spending all that time doing the pub. It's like, for me, I had got that out of my system early, but that was a conditioning by the books, the mentors, and the functions that I attended. So I was very fortunate to actually see all these things in the beginning and understand where everything was going. Whereas a lot of the people were, you know, my age as well, you know, they succumb to all these things because it's a natural thing to do. It's just the way we are. It's just the way everybody is, and that's no failing on them. That's just the way the system works. I was very, very lucky and fortunate to actually get all these teachings way in advance before I even got to all these things. So I was able to get all that stuff out of my system very, very early on. So it's all about working out as well and seeing where your vision is about what you want to achieve, how you want to achieve it, and what you need to do, what you want to do. There's no point in saying that you're going to be a multi-millionaire, right, if you've not got any goals about what you're going to do with it. Because I tell you what, you'd be bloody disappointed when you get to the multi-millionaire status and you've not got anything else to do. And folk will go, oh, well, I'd be over the moon. It's like, but what would you actually do? If you were given this is how people that win the lottery, sometimes it used to destroy them completely because they would never learn how to keep the money. They never learned how to use the money. They had everything all at once, and all their goals had actually gone out of their head, and they could spend it. And then what they did was, I tell you what, I'll start a business. And it's like the worst time to start a business is when you win the lottery, because you'll lose it all. Because your business is no longer, you've no learned all the different things, and you've no understood it. You've no learned. You've not paid that price to get to that wealth. That's why you lose it.
You don't have the mechanisms either, though, to be able to appreciate, understand, and know how to make it all work for you, do you? Because it's almost like an instant thing that you're not ready for.
Yeah, actually, Lord Antonio actually says it quite right. Mortgages were invented by the banks to hand out money on no-risk loans to people. Mortgages were invented by the banks to make sure the banks were in business. That's why. All the banks want to do is sell you money and get you to pay them money to use it. That's all. Everything that the banks want to do is to keep their business alive, just like any other business is. So when it comes out and the banks say, we're going to give you a loan at 95% loan to value, and everybody goes, hurrah, the banks are fantastic. It's like, no, the banks are just wanting to make money out of you. They couldn't care less about you. It's like they just want to make money and keep their business going and sustain it. That's why a mortgage was invented, for that very purpose, so they could sell you in order to make money. It wasn't to let you buy a house. It was just a mechanism to sell you something so they can make money. So be wary. I understand that. Another one as well with the mortgages, like somebody said to me one day, a mortgage broker went, how's about getting 125% mortgage on your house? And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. What, you're going to give me 25% more than the house is valued? This is Northern Rock, by the way. And I went, nah, I'm not going to take that. I'll take a 95% loan to value. That's all I need. But I'm not taking up the 25%. Well, what could I do with it? He says, you could spend it on a car. You could update your house. You could get a better kitchen. I'm like, well, the kitchen's fine as it is. I didn't need a new kitchen. Why would I want to buy another one? Why would I want that? He says, but you've got money to do it now because you're getting 25% more lending. This is a mortgage broker at the time. Somebody I knew very, 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 very well was actually telling me, borrow 25% more than your house is worth. That's how the credit crunch happened.
Absolutely. I was in financial services back in 2008 for about 15 years, and that's actually what sunk a lot of markets back then, because that was becoming the normal lending, and people weren't investing it in the guide you're giving. They were going to that Caribbean holiday, they were buying that new car, they weren't investing it, they were spending.
So my lesson out of that is get what you need, not what you want.
Yeah.
Because what you want, if you delay it right now, will be far greater later on than what you're going to get right now if you want it now. I tell you, the riches are there for you to achieve. You've just got to discipline yourself and pay the price you need to pay. Your price might be more than my price. My price might have been more than your price I had to pay in order to get my success and where I am right now. But it's a price you need to pay. You'll either pay the price now or you'll pay it later. And I tell you what, paying it later, as I said, is no great. Paying it later means working for the rest of your life until you effectively die because you can't afford to retire anymore. It's retiring on 2/3 of what you couldn't afford to retire on in the first place. It's being broke every single month. It's not being able to help out the people in your family. It's not being able to do these things that you really want to do when you want to do them because you don't have the money anymore to do it. Because at some point in time, even the ability, could you imagine a pilot? A pilot doesn't pass the fitness test. He no longer can fly a plane. His income's wiped out like that. A surgeon hurts his hand while cutting something on the worktop, slices his finger. Done. Your surgery days are over, pal. That is the type of thing you're hedging against. That's why you want financial freedom, for that very reason. These are all the things that resonated to me. Somebody comes along to me, one of my family members, and says, I can't afford. I did it with my brother. My brother couldn't get, because he had to sell his house first to buy another house. And I went, that's fine. I'll pay the deposit for the house. You can get the mortgage and you can just pay me back, and I'll get a deed of trust on your house. So when you sell your house, I'll get my money back. Job done. If I hadn't have done what I did, he wouldn't have been able to buy that house because they wouldn't have sold it to him. And that, for me, is everything. That's what I always wanted to do. These are only the things I wanted to do. It was nothing to do with anything else. It was nothing material I wanted to do with this. It was just I wanted to do these things that were intangible. These things that made you feel good within yourself about what you did and made people feel good about it as well. We know ourselves. I mean, we do that today. I mean, we've given away £30,000 this year.
Yeah.
From
well, nearly.
Well, 2 days' time, we'll produce the check for another £1,000, and it will be £30,476 will be given away from 5 properties. Next year, I'm wanting to achieve 35. I'm actually thinking about just jumping it and doing 35 this year, to be honest, Barry, because there's a number of causes I think I could actually help just before the end of the year. But that's what I always wanted to do. This is my dream. This is what I want to do. This is the thing I want to do. Your obligation, if you can, you must. And if you've got the opportunity to help other people out the fortune, the good fortune you've had out of other people helping you throughout that process, then why would you not want to do that? Most of the people I met on my journey, which when I'd give it to them and I'd wave it in front of them, go, I'm a millionaire, never ever made it. They fell by the wayside because their greed shone through and they knew it was selfish and they were in it for themselves. You'll only ever achieve anything unless you bring a team with you and everybody. A rising tide lifts all ships. That's another one I've taken a lot to learn over the years. It is the team it will achieve the result for you. You can't do it by yourself. You need to have a good amount. It's about surrounding yourself with the right people, the right mentors, the right people on your side, the people with the skills that you might have that you won't be able to use anymore in the areas that you want them to achieve in, and rewarding them adequately as a result of that. So that's the kind of things I would say are the best things in order to retire early. You can get the usual things about, work out what you need to retire, hoard everything, keep a hold of your money, save it and pay off your mortgage and stuff like that. But it's not. It's actually working smart with your money. It's actually investing it in the right things, in the right vehicles in order to get you the right result. It's certainly not investing in crypto.
That's not planning out well, is it?
Bye-bye FTX. It's like, and the guy says, all I wanted ever to do was give it all to charity. Well, you've taken everybody else for a ride. It's like all their money is gone as well at the same time. And that was another thing I didn't want to do. I never wanted to take anybody else's money and invest it for them, because then it would be on my head. And I wanted to, if I lose everything, it's all mine. Nobody else.
Exactly. You're doing it at your risk, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my risk. It's the way I do it. I'm very risk adverse. But if I lose anything, it's all mine. I'm Monte Carlo bust. It's like I'm quite happy to go back and live in rented accommodation or even be homeless and unemployed. It doesn't give me any fear at all. And it's that confidence level and understanding of where you are right now, and the very fact that you can achieve whatever you want to achieve will actually drive you forward to be super successful in what you're doing. Because look at this, Perry. If I said to you, whatever you did right now and tomorrow, you can never fail in. What would you do?
It gives you the freedom to try and to do it and to succeed.
You could never fail. You could never fail. You could never ever fail. And if that's the way you think out there right now, that if I was to say to you, you could never ever fail, so what would you do tomorrow? Why are you not doing it right now then? Because you can't fail. You can never fail. You only fail if you give up. You only fail if you give up. That's the only way you fail at anything. What it does is it teaches you how to do it right the next time and how to do it better the next time. Classic examples, look at Elon Musk. All he does is like, oh, right, we'll need to change that engine. 4 or 5 attempts at sending a rocket into space, putting all his money on the line, his last penny on this one result. It was Monte Carlo or bust. And he did it. NASA phones him up and says, you've got the contract, private contract to send us into space. Job done. So history's littered with people that will have that template and that process and show you exactly what to do and where you want to do it. So hopefully that's given everybody into an insight into how you can retire early. There's lots and lots of more information on our playlist on this post about other things as well that you should be doing, like the savings, investments and specialist shows as well, and how much you need to retire early. But listen to the podcast, listen to the shows, watch the shows again. And if you don't get it the first time, listen to it again. You will get it again. Think and Grow Rich, I've read more than 50 times for that very reason. And I will continue to listen and watch it all the time and listen to it all the time. And that's us. Thanks very much for coming on the show, Perry. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And bye-bye for now, everybody. If you've got any questions, please ask them later on.